Okay, we are going to finish up our discussion of external insect anatomy by looking at that last body segment, the abdomen. So this is going to be a very, very quick overview of the external surface of the abdomen. Okay, so let's start with sort of the very basics. Remember that the abdomen is that third body region. It goes head, thorax, and abdomen. And if you look at the abdominal region of an insect, there's not a lot of stuff really hanging off of it. We don't have any legs, we don't have any antennae, we don't have any mouth parts. So there's really not a lot to know necessarily about the abdomen. What is important is it has many, many segments. Remember, this is an arthropod, so it has this external body segmentation. If you remember, the thorax has those three major body regions, those three major body segments, the prothoracic region, the metathoracic, and the meso. Not in that order, but the abdomen, however, has somewhere between 9 and 11 segments on average. Okay, so it varies depending on the insect. Sometimes the last couple of segments or the first couple of segments may be really, really hard to identify, hard to see because they're really tiny and can be slipped inside others or covering other segments. Okay, so you may not see every single segment very, very clearly, but it's somewhere between 9 and 11. Now, just like the thorax, we call the different regions or different areas different things. So we've got that dorsal surface is called the tertium. We don't see it called the notum like we do in the thorax, but it's called the tertium, while the ventral surface is called the sternum. Along the lateral surfaces, we have the pleura, or the pleuron. Okay, so the dorsal tertium, the lateral pleuron, and the ventral sternum. Again, you can look at these different regions and pinpoint those regions on different abdominal segments. So in your key, you might see something like the tertium of segment 2. We start counting segments starting at the thorax. So the most proximal segment to the thorax is segment number 1 all the way up to 9, 10, and 11. That is most distal at the very end of that abdominal region. So if I'm looking at the tertium of segment 3, I'm looking at the dorsal surface of segment 3. Okay. Now, 8 of the segments, usually starting with segment number 1, have these small openings called the sphericals. Remember what the sphericals are? There's those openings to that respiratory system that we see in arthropods. So 8 of the abdominal segments have the sphericals on the pleural surface of the abdomen. So down either side, they will have spherocular openings. So this will allow air or oxygen to diffuse in and CO2 to diffuse out, get into that hemolymph, and bathe all of those muscles and all those things in oxygen. The terminal end, or the back end of the abdomen, has some specialized structures and the genitalia. Okay, so at the very end, this is where we find the female and the male genitalia. When we go over mating and reproduction, I will talk a little bit more about that, but it's found on that terminal end, usually in segments 9, 10, and 11 of the abdominal region. There's also a couple of other structures in there. One major specialized structure is called the cerci. So these cerci are very obvious in earwigs or pincher bugs. So you can see that down here. These are the cerci. Okay? So these are pincher types of things, and in earwigs, they have like a sensory function. They can be used in mating and defense. They're just extra abdominal organs that are hanging off that last segment. Insects also have ovipositors. The females have what are called ovipositors. So ovi means egg, positor means, to put. So these are just structures that place eggs in the environment. So these ovipositors are part of the female reproductive anatomy or the genitalia, and they lay down eggs. So this is a mosquito that is using her ovipositor in order to lay down basic eggs. Let's look at a video of a mosquito laying down some basic eggs. Now, here is a mosquito that is using her ovipositor to lay down some eggs. You can see that she's got that abdominal region moving. The very end of that abdominal region is a small ovipositor. We'll go over this when I show you mosquitoes a little bit more in depth, but as she lays down individual eggs, she's covering them with glue and placing them in these little egg rafts so that they stick together and are nice and protected. So this ovipositor is very delicate and precise. It can lay down eggs exactly where she wants these eggs to be placed so that they have the greatest chance of survival. So this ovipositor is coming out of this last segment of the insect abdomen. Let's just watch this for a minute. It's so cool. So here's this close-up along the side. So that ovipositor isn't exactly long, it's not huge. It is very small in this particular insect or in this mosquito. You're going to see great variety in the size and the shape of these different ovipositors. It just depends on the insect and again depends on their life history. All right. Now, sometimes the genitalia are actually modified for defense. This is where stingers come from. In these cases, in the insects with stingers, these are simply ovipositors that are sclerotized and pointed and used to inject venom. Remember we talked about venomous versus poisonous, but venom into threats or into prey or something like that. Therefore, anything that stings you is female because it has an ovipositor. The males just don't have the organs that can then be modified into stingers. They don't have an ovipositor because they're not female. So these are simply modified ovipositors that will then be used to lay down venom instead of laying down eggs. So now you know when something stings you, it's actually a female that is stinging you. Males do not sting. Males can bite, sure, so it's not like all male insects are completely harmless, but they cannot sting. All right, we're going to end the week there. So remember that you've got your quiz, remember that you have all your stuff to do, but that's the basic external anatomy of the insect. Have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Let me know if you have any questions.